Life and Crimes of Anatoly Moskvin, the grave robber of Nizhny Novgorod. The story of Anatoly Moskvin is one of chilling fascination and unthinkable horror. Born in Russia in 1966, Moskvin was a man of immense intellect and academic brilliance. Yet his name is now etched in history, not for his scholarly achievements, but for the macabre discoveries made in his apartment in 2011. This narrative explores Moskvin's life, his descent into darkness, and the profound questions his case raises about mental health, societal neglect, and the human psyche. Childhood and early influences. Anatoly Yurievich Moskvin was born on July 1, 1966, in Nizhny Novgorod, a historic city in Russia known for its cultural significance. From a young age, he displayed exceptional intelligence, excelling in school and earning a reputation as a gifted student. A traumatic event. Moskvin's fascination with death can be traced back to a traumatic incident in his childhood. At the age of 13, he attended the funeral of an 11-year-old girl named Natasha Petrova. Forced by adults to kiss the girl's corpse, Moskvin later described the event as a defining moment in his life. It was as if death had kissed lips, he wrote in one of his journals. This experience deeply affected him, planting the seeds of what would later become an obsession with death and the afterlife. An isolated childhood. Moskvin was a solitary child, preferring the company of books over people. His peers often found him odd, and he struggled to form close friendships. His parents, while supportive of his academic pursuits, did not fully grasp the extent of his growing fixation with death and cemeteries. Academic brilliance and eccentricities. Moskvin's academic journey was marked by remarkable achievements. He studied philology at Moscow State University, specializing in linguistics, Celtic culture, and Russian history. Over the years, he became fluent in 13 languages and earned recognition as a historian and journalist. Graveyard scholar. Moskvin's primary field of study revolved around cemeteries and burial customs. He traveled extensively across Russia, documenting gravestones, epitaphs, and local funeral traditions. Publications. His articles on graveyards were published in various journals and newspapers, earning him respect as a meticulous researcher. Hiking through cemeteries. Moskvin often walked long distances, sometimes up to 20 kilometers a day, to visit remote graveyards. His work, while eccentric, was not seen as alarming at the time. Many regarded him as a harmless, if peculiar, academic. 3. Descent into darkness. As Moskvin's fascination with cemeteries grew, his academic interest began to blur with personal obsession. His solitary lifestyle, combined with untreated mental health issues, created the perfect storm for his descent into criminal behavior. Hearing voices. Moskvin claimed that he began hearing the voices of young girls while visiting cemeteries. He believed these spirits were calling out to him, begging to be rescued from their graves. The grave robbing begins. Driven by these delusions, Moskvin began exhuming the bodies of recently deceased girls. He later admitted that he would study obituaries to identify potential targets, attending funerals and noting the burial locations. Between 2003 and 2011, he exhumed 29 bodies from cemeteries in and around Nizhny Novgorod. The mummification process. Moskvin's knowledge of history and science allowed him to develop a method for preserving the corpses. 1. Drying the bodies. He would sprinkle salt and baking soda on the corpses to dehydrate them. 2. Stuffing the corpses. Once dried, the bodies were stuffed with rags, cotton, or other materials to maintain their shape. 3. Wax masks and clothing. He covered their faces with wax masks and dressed them in colorful children's clothing, often adding wigs and ribbons. Moskvin referred to these mummified bodies as his daughters, treating them as living beings. Life with the corpses, creating a family. Inside his apartment, Moskvin created a grotesque family of mummified dolls. He gave each girl a name, celebrated their birthdays, and even held tea parties for them. He claimed that his actions were paternal rather than sexual, describing his relationship with the corpses as one of care and affection. Parents' role. Moskvin lived with his elderly parents, who were reportedly unaware of the true nature of his dolls. They believed the figures were part of his hobby and did not suspect that they were actually human remains. This, the shocking discovery. In 2011, local authorities began investigating reports of desecrated graves in the region. Their search led them to Anatoly Moskvin's apartment, where they made a discovery that horrified the nation. 29 mummified corpses dressed as dolls were found throughout the apartment. Maps and detailed records of graveyards were uncovered, documenting Moskvin's grave-robbing activities. Journals filled with notes about his delusions and preservation techniques were seized as evidence. Sepent, legal proceedings and psychiatric care. Arrest and charges. Moskvin was arrested in November 2011 and charged with desecrating graves and abusing the dead. Psychiatric diagnosis. A psychiatric evaluation determined that Moskvin suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. He was declared unfit to stand trial and was committed to a psychiatric institution for treatment. Ongoing confinement. Moskvin remains in a psychiatric facility with periodic reviews of his mental state. Each time, the court has ruled that he poses a danger to society, extending his confinement. 8. Impact on victims' families. Emotional toll. The families of the deceased girls were devastated by the revelation of Moskvin's crimes. For years, they believed their loved ones were resting in peace, only to discover that their remains had been desecrated and turned into grotesque dolls. Efforts for closure authorities worked to return the remains to their rightful graves, but the emotional scars left by Moskvin's actions are impossible to erase. IX cultural and societal reactions. Moskvin's crimes shocked the world, sparking debates about mental health, morality, and societal responsibility. Media coverage. The case received extensive media attention, inspiring documentaries, articles, and discussions. Ethical questions. How can society identify and support individuals struggling with severe mental illness? What measures can be taken to prevent similar crimes in the future? X. Conclusion. Anatoly Moskvin's story is a chilling example of the intersection between intelligence, mental illness, and obsession. While his actions were horrifying, they also serve as a reminder of the importance of early intervention and understanding in addressing mental health issues. The legacy of this case is one of tragedy, raising profound questions about the human psyche and the responsibilities of society in preventing such horrors.